Hello. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I can't hear you. Are you talking? Can you talk? I can't hear you.
Hey, John. Looks like you're outside today.
Allegan County.
And just for the record, is Craig Atwood with us today?
I am here.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you. And Joe Fry, are you with us? No, okay, Ryan, I see Ryan's here. Rich, are you here? Rich LeBombard? No, okay, and I see Mike Betts from the fire department is with us as well, so we'll just make a note of that. Okay, next I'm going to call for an approval of the agenda. Are there any additions to today's agenda? And if not, can I call for a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll move.
What?
John Adams.
This is Marcy, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Roll call. Brenda, do you approve the minutes? Brenda Marcy,
Yes.
Cindy Osmond. Yes, you said yes. Ken Truster,
Yes.
Jerry's not here. John Adams
Yes.
and Richard Donovan.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have agendas approved. Next, we have approval of minutes. There were some changes, I think, to the minutes from August 13th. One thing I want to note, and I've already sent this on to Kathy, is that John was excused absence last week, not myself. And then Richard, you had a change.
Yeah, it just, the minutes as drafted say that Chief Janik, I forget the word, but approved the two-lane option. And my recollection and my notes say that he was open to considering the two-lane option with a traffic signal. And Mike is on, maybe he can confirm that, but I'd be glad if the chief was ready to approve it, but I'm not sure Larry reported that he had said that, and Larry can confirm the conversation as well.
Agree with your assessment, Richard. It was open to supporting it with the traffic signal. Yep.
Mike, did you want to weigh in on that?
Sorry, I would agree. I wouldn't call it approved. I'd say he's open, but not approved.
Okay, we'll make that note in the minutes. And Jerry Donovan is in the waiting room. Can we let him in, please? Okay, if there are no other changes to the minutes, can I call for a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved as amended.
Thank you. Second? I'll second. Leo. Okay, I have to take a roll call to approve the minutes. Brenda, do you approve the minutes?
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Ken? Ken? Just shake, give us a shake.
I'm sorry, I pressed the wrong mute button. Yes,
Okay, thank you. Jerry, we're just approving the minutes.
I approve.
Thank you. And John, Adam?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Donovan.
Yes.
All right, minutes are approved. We're moving on to public comments. At this time, the committee welcomes any member of the public to comment, limited to today's agenda topics, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or under. Do we have anyone from the public? Just raise your, oh. Is there anyone raising their hand? Okay, I don't see anyone. So at this point, let's move on to the agenda item of the public open house final details. Larry and Emily, shall we start there?
That sounds great. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I guess we're going to try to go over this public open house stuff briefly, but make sure we're thorough. Everybody has a good understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to go about it. So public awareness, I'm assuming there was an article in the paper and some published advertisements.
There was article in the paper and public postings.
Okay, and so you're documenting this so that we have that information. Great.
Emily and I have a list of all of those items.
Good. We know an excellent flyer was developed and has it been posted? All the government buildings online, all of that stuff. Okay. Posted around town. Okay. Adjacent property owners contacted. We talked about last week, could be just like some associations, but that's all been done.
Maybe the city managers can weigh in on this.
We have, hi Holly, this is Ryan. We have not reached out to the association adjacent to Blue Star, but we will do so.
It's the same with the township as well.
Okay. If I,
Okay.
Gentlemen, if I can assist, because I know you're crazy busy, let me know. I can drop flyers or email. Let me know.
Just a quick question on that. Are we just sending the flyer for the open house, or are we sending like a letter?
I think the flyer is sufficient.
Okay, I just want to make sure, we're all sending the same thing out, like maybe make sure I didn't get the wrong one. So, okay.
All right.
Holly,
Okay.
if I could quick,
Yes, right.
if Ken Trester, do you have a contact that you can email to me for the association?
Actually, it's Vicky Cobb and
hang on here. Yes. Ryan, yeah, you could, let me think here. Yeah, I'll send you a contact. What I'm concerned about is that, our communications process here is not all that great anyway, but we'd like to get word out to every one of our owners, which would be number in the 50s, as opposed to just having it go to our board.
Right. So do you have an email chain within your association or not?
We do. We
Okay.
do.
Great. That would be the request. If I push that out to Vicky, I think, who's the president, I just heard. And if she
Right.
could distribute that out to all members, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and if you could do that today, that would help because
Will
we
do.
need lead time. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, Holly.
Yep, and I have already spoken with Vicky. She will be at the open house to ask questions and talk to the engineers. Okay, anything else?
All right, open house format. I don't know if this is going to skip around too much, but I'm going to address all the items we had from last time. Have a sign-in sheet? Yes, we're preparing one. My question is, what information do we want to collect on it? What's not too obtrusive or intrusive? So I'm just thinking name, address, and email if they want to give it. That sound right? I'm not going to ask for phone numbers or any of that kind of information. Emily, any suggestions? That's sufficient?
That would seem sufficient to me. Does anyone else have any other?
Maybe municipality that they reside in.
Okay. Do you think that would be in the address portion or like separate?
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. I thought you said name, address, no, name, email address.
Oh,
But
name,
not email.
address, and
Yeah,
mailing
then it
address.
would be in there.
I'll put mailing. Okay. Okay.
Just to know, I think it's not always clear if they're in Saugatuck City or Saugatuck Township, if I'm correct, just from the address. I mean, maybe we should say which one they're with, because if I understand it correctly, I know we have difficulty knowing which community they're from, if that matters.
Okay, we can add like a checkbox underneath that says Saugatuck City, Saugatuck Township, City of Duck. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
All right.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's great.
So here's their thoughts. So one person from the committee will be stationed at a greeting table. And at the greeting table, we will have the sign-in sheet. We will have handouts. And then the open house poster, which we had a draft, but I have a updated one that I ran by Holly. So this is obviously the one that Holly put together.
Mhm.
Then, oop, where did it go?
It was the
Here.
right one, I think. Yeah.
This one. So this is what we have on, as you enter, masks are required and available upon request. Please use hand sanitizer and maintain social distancing, so covering the COVID requirements. Visit one of 3 stations to review information, ask questions, and provide comment. All stations have the same information, and the greeter can kind of go through this with people too. Take a handout for additional information, and then before you leave, please write your comments on the form provided and drop it in the comment box. So trying to keep it pretty simple. Does that seem sufficient to everyone? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Go back to this. All right, so the 3 stations, here's what we have planned right now is we will have 3 stations with the engineering map. So the 4 exhibits that we've previously gone through, they've been updated slightly since our last meeting, but then plus we also updated the overall trail map that we would also have at each station, because I think this is a real good piece of information, because our drawings really only show segments and this gives you the whole picture. So this is from the Friends of the Blue Star Trail that was previously provided. So we just adjusted the very northern section to be our current plan. So we would have these drawings at each table, so each of 3, and then also mounted on foam core on easels separate away from everyone that would also have some sticky notes and other things that people, if they don't necessarily want to stand and talk to somebody or do this in front of other people, they can look on their own and then write comments and look at the information. That makes sense?
Yep.
Everybody good with that so far?
Mhm.
Okay. We're asking that we have one person from C2AE, one person from the committee at each station, and that you can swap out or however you want to do that, depending on how many people are there. Have a feedback form. So I put one in the agenda that was draft that I came up with. Emily made some suggestions to that. So it's a little less specific about which option do you choose. It's providing more description of preference rather than answering specific questions. Emily, is that, will you put it and put it any differently?
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so we have it broken into segments. Where there's an alternative, we do state there are alternatives, and then which alternative is preferred and why. Then any additional comments related to that segment. And then for the segments that don't have alternatives, just provide comments. And then on the overall trail plan, provide any comments. And then optional information if they're willing to put their name, address, and email again. Everybody good? Suggestions or additions? Good. You guys are easy. Oh, go ahead.
Larry?
Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I've got an unstable connection again, so my video isn't working. You know, I've talked before about the concerns that people have in Saugatuck about the aesthetics of this. And are you planning on showing any depictions of street level, let's say, or anything at all about what this thing is going to look like in terms of the delineators and in terms of having the trees removed from the northern section of the bridge?
And we have not created any renderings of this, but Richard brought up that same point earlier in the week. And so one of the ideas is they have a large monitor in the meeting space. And so the previous renderings that were created showing some of the street level stuff and bridge that are still pretty applicable, we were going to put those on a thumb drive and like a continuous loop on that monitor. So it's not, you know, the engineering drawings per se on there, but it's those types of things. And I do have a discussion item about if there's additional items that we'd want to put on there as well, like just photographs of any other trail segments that you'd want to put on or whatever. Would you think that would address that?
Well, it might. Are you speaking of the Fleece and Van Brink renditions?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that would definitely be helpful to have those available. Although they do, let me take a closer look at them again. They're not exactly totally realistic. You know, they don't show delineators, and they show a huge green pathway with trees in it, which won't exist. So I am concerned about this. I mean, I don't want to end up having people think we misled them, that this was going to be an idyllic setting.
Yeah, I understand your concern, but there's also the level of detail at which stage do you do it. And so once we get into the hard design, that's when really we would be creating the specifics, because, you know, we talked about, you know, we don't even know exactly what the delineators would look like at this point. So anyways, so I would expect that during the design process, you're also going to have additional public information meetings, at least through.
Larry, the first step that needs to have happened is for the city of Saugatuck to approve this. And, you know, we could end up with a room full of people standing up and saying, you know, I don't want this to look horrible, to degrade the entrance to our city. So that's got to happen fairly quickly.
Well, I would just say, how about this, Larry? Do we have a landscape architect from C2AE that's going to be at that meeting?
Not planned on it. We have myself, someone from our executive team, and then Emily.
Okay. Well, I think, you know, there's a giant big screen, and we'll put those images in a loop on the giant screen, and as the designs come into focus, then there'll be more detail. And if that's you know, we've already said that those trees may need to be replaced, and we'll move forward at that time with concerns. John, did you have something to say?
I was just going to suggest, you know, perhaps it's confusing, but we've looked at a number of possible options for separators, and there's a good range of pictures of them. Maybe they'd be helpful to give some feedback, to have some of those pictures that we considered. Maybe people hate some, like some, I don't know, but there are definitely pictures and ideas out there to share, even though we haven't completed them.
Okay, that's a good point. Richard?
Yeah, I guess a related question is the representatives from the committee in C2, to what extent will they be eliciting information from the attendees and explaining things? Like, is it their job to merely answer questions, or should they be pointing out, well, if we do this option with 3 lanes, we're going to have a divider, and we don't yet know what that's going to look like, but there's going to be something there. And if we do 2 lanes, we're probably going to need a traffic signal. And, that's not, well, the traffic signal is depicted in the digital renderings, but there is still this question, how much will people on our team be pointing out, and how much information should they be eliciting that would, might address some of these points?
Sounds like a good Emily question.
Sorry, I'm thinking. We're trying to get feedback. So yes, answering questions and letting them know, what the options are. That's why we're going to be there, so we can answer those questions. So that would be part of it. And then we're hoping they provide the feedback, in a written form. I don't know if I answered your question.
I think it's a combination of discussion of the options. So it's kind of like, if people ask a question or would like an explanation, that's what we're there to provide, to lead them through. And, if there's more than one person there at the time, so much the better. And then answer specific questions as well. And then they can, provide their comments and feedback. So it's trying to engage people, trying to, I guess, fill in any gaps that they have as far as understanding the alternatives and answering questions. So kind of more of a proactive engagement as well, as opposed to just sitting back and just answering specific questions. And
I will just add to that when Emily and I FaceTimed at Isabel's, the setup, according what Emily was looking for, is that we just have stations that really facilitate basically human contact, human communication. So it's not really about technology. It's about, you're walking to one table, you're looking at one section of a design, you can speak to an engineer or a committee member. I really would like everybody to come. That was a plug. But you basically are able to have informal conversations at 3 different stations, and then there's a 4th station where people can fill out forms. That's how it's set up, so that you are talking to a person is talking to you.
One of my thoughts, I'm thinking of trying to address some of the concerns, is once we have this meeting and we come up with a preferred alternative to go to the local government boards, at that time, Larry, could there be renderings? So that way it could address some of the concerns. So like that way, when you get to that meeting, Ken, you would be able to have those renderings of what the option that we're looking at applying for would look like. I don't know if that's realistic, timing wise.
It's a bit beyond our scope of
Okay,
work, but
got it.
I wouldn't say no.
Well, if I may, it would be tremendously helpful from my perspective.
Well, I think it's really a design issue. And I think that as we, one of the reasons we chose C2AE was because they did have that landscape architect. And I think that's something that's been important to Ken this entire time. And I think it is important to the city. So I think that's something that we can address as we go, just like as we design reflectors, etc. It's just something that we're going to have eyes on moving forward as we go through the design process.
And then also, Larry, I had, I don't know if how it would work on this looping technology, but I had put together a PowerPoint with a whole bunch of different delineators.
Yeah, I think that's maybe what Ken was referring to, or no, it was John actually, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. We could certainly throw that in there with the renderings and any other items that people thought would be appropriate.
That
and
sounds,
what I'm thinking is we won't have an official feedback on that, but while you're talking to people, when those come up, you could say, well, which, you know, what would work best? I mean, some of them in there aren't pretty, and I would say I put them all in there, so that way you could see, you know, that some do look a lot nicer than other ones, but they're not the greatest thing in the world. I understand that.
again, it's a design challenge.
It is.
You have to, you know, artists have to do that. You have to take something that's not the most beautiful thing and you have to reinterpret it. And that's our challenge. Yes, Richard.
Emily, can we see that PowerPoint ahead of time so we don't walk in that night and get surprised by what's in there and people start asking us questions and we didn't know this was coming?
Larry, can you throw it up there really quick and just flip through the pictures? It's just a bunch of pictures that
Yeah.
I like took off the internet from different communities.
Let me see if I can find that quickly.
Or you can send it to us as well.
Okay. I know I have it somewhere.
Okay, no problem. Let's continue.
Okay. All right, so I think, all right, one thing, all right, so the handout, here's what I'm thinking. So we have, these are gonna be 8.5 by 11, so they aren't gonna be huge, but we have the engineer drawing on the front of one sheet, and on the back of that sheet, we have the description, the route descriptions. And so I modified these, and then we've made some slight improvements after I sent this out in the agenda packet. So the intent here is, you know, they have the drawing on the front, although it's not going to be real readable. It just gives them an idea where they're at. Then they can look on the back, and it has the route descriptions and alternatives for each segment. So 1 page per segment. And so we outline the options here, and you guys have seen these before pretty much. What I've done then is added the updated costs for each alternative to this discussion. And then also put in here alternates also considered with this section, but not recommended. So this addresses that we want to, you know, express to the public too, that these aren't the only options that have been considered. There were many others. And so I tried to go back through and do the best that I could for options. I realize that for this segment, boy, it could be a 2-page listing, but just tried to put the key to show that there's been a lot of work previously put into this. So does everyone feel good about that? How to get that across? So everybody then has a handout. It's got all 4 of the drawings, and then it's got the descriptions on the back for each of the segments.
Yeah, I think you did a good job, Larry. I mean,
Okay.
it's complicated, but as a layperson, I'm able to follow it. So
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we could have pages of description, but
right, of course.
okay. And that's what's there. I mean, people can hopefully look at this while they're talking with us, and then if they have specific questions, that's where we can get further and further into detail. Okay, and then it's something they can take with them as well and would have. I'm just wondering, is there anything else that we should be adding to the handout? Okay, good. All right, so I think, all right, so utilize the monitor. Holly, is that just something I want to get with you on Monday and we kind of finalize what this is, what it looks like?
Yeah. We're gonna send, Lisa Mize is our contact there, and, we can send her a PowerPoint or a bunch of images just to her email, and she'll put it on a loop. They got like a jumbo screen there, so.
Great. I don't need to bring a computer or anything. It's just really either email or USB or something.
I think we can just send it to her. I'll confirm that.
Very good. Okay, wonderful. It might get pretty large if we had a lot of photographs and, renderings. So email might be difficult, but we can use a transfer protocol, a website or something like that.
Did I say Lisa Mize? I meant Lisa Wiley. That's her contact.
Okay. All right, we'll talk further on Monday then. Post open house feedback, we talked about this. So Holly, after the meeting, the poster boards of all of the alternatives plus the overall map, I will leave with you, as well as the comment box and comment forms. And then you can take that to the library.
Yes.
Okay. And then we will also provide the PDFs to each governmental agency to post on their websites. And hopefully we can do that actually Tuesday, because things should be finalized by then. What the presentation will look like Monday or Tuesday, actually. And then if we're also going to have the loose maps that we can leave. If anybody else wants to take them, we'll have 3 sets of those that would be available if you can think of another use for them. And then I'm thinking, all right, so we'll have the comment box at the library. The open house flyer also says, comments are, the library is available for comments. And then on form, we will put comments due no later than September 1.
Okay.
And I'm thinking too, so if we put the PDF of the drawings and everything on each website, we also put the comment form. So that one is, I guess, questionable that can they turn in at each governmental office if they choose, or where does it need to go?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking about the township, and I know that
Yeah.
Joe said that they can basically just put up a PDF. So maybe what we do is we'll have to have a PDF. If it's possible, maybe we can do the sheet as a PDF, and that could maybe be emailed or dropped off in person.
And you're talking about for the survey, correct, Holly?
Yep. Just the feedback form, basically.
Is there, Larry,
This one. Yeah.
times for public engagement they use like not MailChimp, but like SurveyMonkey? Everything is a monkey, I guess. For the feedback, are you guys using that as a tool to collect information?
We are not planning to in this instance. I mean, we have done that before, but we've kind of decided that since we're having an in-person open house, we would collect these manually.
Okay.
And then basically utilize it from there.
Okay. I just wanted to, because I could take like a link and make it work, but PDF is always best for us.
Is there any way to make a link?
Is that a question for me? I'm not a link to what?
A link is, can we like post it to Google Docs or something so that each municipality would be able to have a link? Is that possible? Just that I'm not techie in that way. Well,
Yeah.
let's come back to that, okay?
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
All right, so here's what I had on the original, this provide written comments on the proposed plans. Your input is appreciated. Comments should be left in the comment box or turned into the city of Saugatuck, city of Douglas, or Saugatuck Township no later than September 1 is the way I have it right now. So we have until Tuesday to work on that if there's some other options.
All right,
Okay.
work on that. We'll make that tighter.
Okay. I think that covers the open house. information, make sure. Okay, COVID precautions we talked about, so we'll, oh, I know. So I don't know if there's a municipality that can provide the masks and hand sanitizer. Do you have a source or a supply that you keep on hand anyways that you can bring 50 or so masks to the venue? Ryan shaking his head yes.
Ryan?
Yes, we can accommodate.
Great,
And I think Isabel's may have as well, so,
sure, they might have some, okay.
okay.
All right,
We'll just follow whatever protocols are in place for the county for that day, for the county and the state.
yeah, I think, well, our board's being printed, it will say, you know, masks required, but I guess then I don't expect anybody to go around enforcing it, but we'll just have to do what we can.
Mhm.
I think I myself, Emily, would be more comfortable if people did wear masks, so.
Mhm.
All righty, I think that covers the open house. Anybody else have anything that we've missed?
Yeah, Holly,
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Larry, with the questionnaire, it occurred to me, you could take the opportunity to ask a little more open-ended question about things like the traffic signals and the acceleration lane. You know, in other words, regardless of which option someone likes, you could just ask them, you know, do you object to traffic signals? Do you think they're a good idea? You know, what do you think about traffic signals at Lake Street? And what do you think about the acceleration lane? Do you use it? Should we keep it or not keep it? How important is that? You know, you could ask questions like that apart from the choice of which specific option. I don't know if that kind of information would be useful to the committee or not at this stage.
Emily, you have any feedback on that?
Well, I'm just thinking, my concern is having people, some of those things we don't have control of. Like, you know, a lot of times, you know, we're gonna have to pick a route and an alignment that meets the standards and meets all the regulations. So I guess I get concerned asking people too much information about things they might not have the background information to know when a signal is, you know, safe to put in, when acceleration lane is safe to put in or out. Because that's, well, one, it's up to the traffic engineers to make that decision. So I guess I just get a little uncomfortable just asking people's opinions about that. I'd really rather focus on the opinion of the bike facility and how the bike facility will work, and then making that meet the regulations for road construction and road engineering. Does that make sense?
So it sounds like you're saying, Emily, you don't want to put something on the menu that is not available necessarily.
Or that we necessarily have a lot of control of. That's a little bit of my concern.
If you have any specific suggestions, Richard, and want to kind of send them today or whatever, I can vet them with Emily on Monday, see if we should add them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then
Larry, I just want to support Richard's concerns here. I think to the extent that we could make some of those points, it would be really important. So Richard, I'll think about it too. Maybe we can come together with an idea.
okay,
Is the question should be more, I find a lot of times surveys like, do you like a traffic signal or would you use it? It has to be more directed. Like, I think you would get better data if you could focus a question related to, would you use the intersection more often if you didn't have to stop? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think how you word the question to get better information. And that's what I was trying to get at. When it's just like, do you like something or not? That doesn't necessarily work. And it can help you in decision making in the long run. but it might not, because, when you go to apply for a grant, they might say, well, where did that information come from? It has to show, X number of accidents or safety precautions before they'll put the light in. So that's where I'm trying to get at, is trying to word the question in a way that is really good information to find out what people's concerns are there versus just what they perceive they like or don't like how they utilize the intersections.
But if you guys do the best you can, then Emily and I can wordsmith if need be. This might be an unfair question, but any idea of how many handouts we should have prepared? Is 50 sound right, or?
I'm sort of guessing that we'll get 50, but you might want to have maybe more than that.
Okay.
It's possible that we could have more, better, of course, better to have too many than to run out.
Sure.
Hate to kill the trees, but maybe
Okay.
75.
Yeah, that's what I just wrote down.
We
75.
might do 30. We might. I mean, I'm expecting maybe 50 at the most, but
Okay. It's
we're-
always hard to
Yeah.
really predict that. Yeah. Okay, I think we've covered the open house. I think it's going to be a great venue. I think Holly has a great idea of where to hold it, and it's good that the community would support this. So looking forward to it. All right, so the other items on the agenda, what, you ready to move on, I guess?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Larry.
All right, so we had, all right, talked before about, I'm going to show back this funding thing. We talked before about some point you need to decide who's going to be the applicants for the grants. What we talked about previously, and I updated this, but it really didn't change in costs. And I don't plan to put this at the public information meeting or the detailed cost estimates. Basically just the overall stuff is appropriate for that level. But we are suggesting a TAP application that covers the entire project. So there are going to be 3 communities or districts, entities involved, but we need 1 applicant. That's an Act 51 agency. And then we are also suggesting 2 trust fund applications, one for the city of Saugatuck and one for Saugatuck Township. We've done this in the past, and we think it's a really good way to leverage all the financing we can, because trust funds limited to 300,000 per applicant. And so this gets an opportunity to get 600,000 rather than 3. So the trust fund is really clear. If you're agreeing with that idea, that should be the city of Saugatuck and should be Saugatuck Township. So I guess, is there a willingness on both of those entities, or do we need to explore that further to submit as those be an applicant for those? But that would be our recommendation. So I don't
Holly,
know.
yeah, representing the city, that makes a lot of sense.
This is Joe. I don't see a problem for the township submitting, for the state grants for, the trust fund. So.
Great.
Okay, and then the next one really is I guess, important as well, is who should be the lead applicant or the applicant for the TAP grant. So the options would be either of the 2 cities or the road commission on behalf of the township.
So happy to jump in on this conversation. I discussed this with Holly last week, I think it was. And it, kind of reading the tea leaves and just kind of listening to Craig's comments, and Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think his county commission board would support being the lead applicant. And so I think that the city would be the better fit. Craig? what are your thoughts on that? And we, to be fair to Craig, nobody's really approached him for an official conversation to be to be the lead applicant. I think there was some early on assumptions, but listening to Craig's comments at previous meetings, I think the city would be a better fit. Craig?
I would be perfectly fine with that. I'm not saying we wouldn't do it. For me, it gets a little more complicated with portions being within the city. If it was strictly in the township, I think that role would fall to us, but with a lot of it being in the two cities, I think that makes perfect sense. And it could be handled, our participation then would be handled just through a working in the right-of-way permit from us. I mean, we'd still have to review the final plans and all that kind of thing. You want to make sure our interests are being represented in it, but pretty simple process, for our involvement then at that point. So that would be, I guess, my preferred method. So thanks for stepping up, Ryan, on that.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're just trying to take the path of least resistance, I think, with no pun intended, with most of these items. And I think that's one that we don't want to get hung up with is with your board, and just to make it easier on everyone.
And everyone except you, Ryan.
Yeah, well, I don't. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, we think, Ellie and I have had this discussion before. We think that would be our first recommendation. So, okay, I don't know how
Larry,
we can
just
get
say-
any board support. We still will want Craig's board's support of the application, but not being the applicant.
Yeah, we will need something from the road commission. I know in the long run, they'll need a permit, but something for the grant application that says that the city can build this within the
Yep.
right of way of the county road right away. That piece.
Yeah, that I don't think that'll be a problem at all. Do you have anything drafted up that you're going to be sending to the two cities and the township as well? Maybe, I don't know if the same resolution of support could apply to all four entities, agencies.
Yeah, when we get closer, we'll put something like that together.
Sounds good. I don't see that being an issue.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. And
Thanks,
then the
Ryan.
next, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Holly.
I said thanks, Ryan and Craig.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Holly, I got to bounce out to go to a different meeting, but
Okay.
it's good to see everyone via
That was
Zoom.
nice. That was a nice segue, a nice stopping point there.
Great.
Bye, Ryan. Okay.
Okay, so related to that then obviously is, and you may have had this discussion before as a committee, we just don't have the background to know. But you can see on my screen, on the screen here, depending on the, what the committee chooses to apply for, whether it's 50% tap, 60% tap, based on the current cost estimates, you're looking at a range of $400,000 to $600,000 in local share that you'll need to commit towards the project. And then if the traffic signal is, added or chosen, that might add about 120,000 local share to each of those costs. So this is really your discussion about how how the commitment gets put together.
Everybody don't throw your hands up at once.
Well, this is John. We've been budgeting for a couple of years for this project. And the numbers keep changing, generally going up. But fortunately, some of the funding sources have as well. So, the figure of 60% tap 400 is near the range that we've been budgeting for, and we're working hard to raise that money. We've got a couple of events coming up. We hope will get us on the way, and we've got some plans for a capital campaign. The other number is beyond our budgeting. I'm not saying we can't get there, but that is one that's going to be more of a challenge for us. So we got a lot of moving pieces here, and I guess our expectation was more at the low end of this range, and we're hopeful we can do that as an organization. That's our goal, and we're working at it. You know, again, assuming all these sources of grants come in, if that's helpful. We have not planned on the traffic signals.
Okay.
One thing I can add is TAP really likes to see the local government also contribute. So, and sometimes it doesn't have to be a lot, but if, you know, if it's being raised through other donations, the Friends Group, other grants, but they like to see local government put some skin in the game. And I fought with them because sometimes they're covering the engineering costs, they're covering other things, but they really like to see that line item in there. And it might not have to be a whole lot of money, but it should be something. And that's just something to consider. I don't know if you've talked about that at different local government levels.
No, I don't think we have talked about that.
Okay, so the previous basis has been funding, local share funding provided through the Friends organization, pretty much. And we don't need a final decision today. It's just something you need to keep open. And obviously, if we end up at a $600,000 local share for whatever reason, I'm just throwing that number out, you know, then there may be some additional discussion about, well, if the Friends can only contribute and commit to 400,000, then what else can we do? Emily and I have talked, and we're keeping an eye out, of course, on all the stimulus funding and other things. And there's a EDA grant that's been announced, but it's marginally would apply to this project. And it's one of those that they're difficult to come by, they're difficult to administer, and time wise probably are beyond where you want to be. But if these don't come through, that could be another option. At least, I mean, we are keeping our eye out for other funding sources outside of what's been shown. All right, then I think, Emily, do we need to take this any further right now as far as
No, I just really wanted to start the discussion because once we, you know, we're going to go to local government, or you're going to go to your local governments asking for support and resolutions. And I just wanted to talk about where that money is going to come from. Are we going to be asking at the local government level for those resolutions to include funding of, you know, $10,000 or $50,000? So I just thought it would be a good time to start talking about that, because those meetings, you know, are, you know, about a month away. So.
Okay. I think it's good that we're talking about this and understanding from TAP's point of view. Brenda?
Yeah, just real quick, what was the name of that third option of funding that they were talking about that's difficult to get?
Is it EDA?
It is. It's the American Recovery Act funds for through the Economic Development Agency, there are federal grants.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that brings us to the last item we had was trail maintenance plan. So I don't know, previously, of course, you were going to do both TAP and trust fund applications. I guess, is the understanding that each municipality be responsible for maintaining their portions of the trail that are within their jurisdictions, or is there some other agreement or arrangement that's been talked about?
Larry, this is Joe Fry. So the resolution that kind of kicked off on this process requires the committee to come back with a, you know, options on a maintenance plan for the communities. Us as managers have kind of started getting some, you know, what would that financially look like between us. Because currently the status quo is we each take care of our own, but with the resolution it asks to look at, you know, is there a different alternative? So we're doing that research right now so that the committee can have something, you know, to talk about that can work for everyone, but that's in its initial phases.
Okay, well, it sounds like you've already kind of taken on that discussion item outside of, well, within your committee, but when we haven't been there. So that sounds great. I'm glad to hear you're being proactive on that. Emily, anything to add on that?
No, just for the grant, since Sagatuck, the city of Sagatuck will be the grant applicant, there'll need to be some kind of agreement made between the township and the city saying that who's going to maintain the township portion. So
Yep. Yeah,
if it's not, sorry.
It's part of one of our reasons why we're having this conversation is that forethought of, yep, we're going to have to explain to grant holders why you should fund us because we'll take care of it long term. So, it's just working on those details for the 3 municipalities to, to have something to talk about. So
Great.
And I would assume, Larry, that you're going to give us some more figures once we get past the open house. Would you just, for maintenance,
Yes.
give us some, I know that there's data points out there, asphalt versus boardwalk, et cetera. So.
Yep, we can certainly help with that.
We're at
Provide.
the beginning of this conversation, but we can have like some real world data points that would be helpful.
Talking on behalf of the township, and if I was in the other manager's shoes, having that, what is this going to cost will help with how we arrange a proposal for a long-term maintenance agreement if we all do it together.
Okay.
Richard, did you have your hand up? Did you want to add something?
Well, no, I think you covered it. I was going to ask Joe whether having that information from C2 would be helpful to their discussions, but I think he just addressed that.
Yeah, if we can get, for the various options, it's always hard. If we can get some of the annual maintenance costs or how much, is recommended to put away for, rebuilding the bridge once it's broken, that would be helpful so that we can all have a very honest conversation.
Well,
Okay.
well said. And I think that's one of the benefits of having C2AE is that having done this a few times, that they can really sort of bring some of those real world costs to us. So. Go on.
All right. I think we've covered the items that we had planned to for today. Sorry to disappoint you. We're not going to 3:30, but.
Hey, Larry, can you share the screen? I do have those delineator pictures I could flip through really quick if people wanted to see them now.
I can stop sharing. Can you now check and see if you can share? I don't know how to grant you permission.
I think I can here. Let's see if that'll work.
Oh, here it comes.
Is that up?
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, so honestly, I just took pictures. Some of them are nice and some of them aren't. And I did that on purpose just to see. These are all been approved throughout the country. That doesn't mean MDOT will improve them necessarily, but they should. They meet the regulations. So I'll just flip through them, right? They're all just slightly different. These actually have lights on them, which I thought was interesting. It's in Ann Arbor.
Oh, that's nice.
I actually thought this looked nice. As nice as that can look, I guess. These are called armadillos. I never heard of them before, but there's a couple different versions of them.
Bees.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah. Now, this wasn't actually, this one isn't done. This was a contest. And it hasn't actually been done. I don't actually know if MDOT would approve them, but I thought it was an interesting idea. It was in a contest to make prettier delineators. So you guys aren't the only ones that don't like them. They actually had a contest and this was one of the, it wasn't the winner, but it was one of the top 3. And then this was another one. This uses recycled tires. Again, this hasn't been implemented, but it was in this contest through one of the traffic engineering companies. That's the same recycled tires. And then these are the wave delineators that have been used. Here's some different versions of where they've been used. Again, that I thought wasn't bad.
Mhm.
And that's the last one.
Right. You think they would let us use color at all?
I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
If you want, I'm not sure what MDOT would approve and would not approve.
Okay.
Is this where we talked about the paintbrushes as delineators? We have to hang on to that. You never know.
Well, the delineators come in just about every color. So you really could do, you could do sort of a rainbow, or you could do something that worked with paint on the trail area. So you could, those are not the most beautiful things I've ever seen. As an artist, I look at that and say, we could do better. We're Saugatuck, we could do this better. So I really like to sort of push the envelope and try to do something that's physically, appealing. That's not, and I, like Ken said, nobody wants to look at 400 delineators. So,
Well, that's what I found is how they're spaced isn't consistent either. And the standards are, you can't have them much farther spaced and close, some places use them much closer together when there's a lot of cars nearby and cars parked, but it's very different. One thing to think about is to get through the grant process and meet all MDOT's requirements is the delineators themselves aren't very expensive, right, Larry?
No, they aren't.
Is to just do what has to be done and then think about beautifying them sort of as a next phase afterwards. So that way you meet all of MDOT's requirements, you get through all of that. And then maybe you'd see if you can change them to look like paintbrushes or do something really creative. Because MDOT doesn't like, they don't do that well with, pushing out of that direct standard. So that's the nice thing is that delineators aren't expensive, so they could be replaced at not a huge cost.
okay. So we sort of need to get through this stage, kind of stay within, do not color outside of the lines. And at the next phase, possibly we can look at doing something that's a little bit more design on brand with our community.
I agree, yes.
Okay, all right.
Emily, I'm surprised though, in that situation, wouldn't MDOT reserve the right to approve any changes that you make to the design?
As long as you're still within the standards, I think they'd be okay. They're not the bike trail police, I guess, is what I'm saying. They're not, I guess I wouldn't be that concerned. You can't make it not meet any kind of standards anymore. You can't, if you apply for trust fund grant for it, it has to stay in that recreation use. So, you can't make those changes, but I think you can make some other changes.
Aesthetics.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, are we okay with adding those photos to the loop with the renderings for the monitor?
I think it looks good.
Mhm.
Yes.
Good. And we can have that discussion about, hey, it hasn't been determined yet, but these are a lot of things that you can do. And so we're not to that point, but don't, fret too much about that. We can't come up with something that would be more pleasing than the standard.
Challenge.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so reviewing next steps. Larry, I think you wanted to stay on track. We need to meet again next Friday.
Yes, correct. What I'd like to do is do basically a download of the public information meeting next Friday. Follow up on any items we discussed today. Emily, was there anything else in that? We still have to talk about some other things in the future, small committee for the grant application.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry to keep taking your Fridays in August. But to stay on track, I think we have to. All right. Anything else? Nope. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to general public comments, if you're all set, Larry and Emily. Okay. If there's any member of the public who would like to weigh in on the trail at this time, just limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody that would like to speak? I don't see anybody. Does anybody else see anyone? Okay. Do any committee members have closing comments at this time? Besides comments about having to be at another meeting next week. If there's nothing else, I think I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and let you all get on with your day. I'll see you all Tuesday.
This is Marcy. I'll move that we adjourn at 3:06 p.m.
Okay,
Second,
thank you, Ken.
this Ken, I second.
Thank you, Ken. Roll call vote for adjournment. Brenda,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
John. He may be gone already. Richard.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. If everybody can make it on Tuesday, I'd appreciate it. And we're getting close to the end. Thanks for your patience. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You all too. Bye-bye.
I look forward to meeting you all.
Thanks, Holly.
Yes. Thanks.